Everyone is out there talking about Skyward Sword, and here I am talking about Twilight Princess. Don't get me wrong, I do recommend Skyward Sword. I reviewed the game some time ago and I still recommend it today. Despite initially having difficulty with the motion controls, I realized my mistakes. Afterwards, I highly recommended the game. I'd still call it good, few issues with the writing, level designs, and some of the side content, but the rest does really well. Meanwhile, I'd probably argue that Twilight Princess is also good, but for different reasons. Different flaws, different strengths. I recommend them in a similar manner, though. But in the end, I like Twilight Princess more than I like Skyward Sword. It isn't my favorite 3D Zelda game. I still love Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, and even Ocarina of Time more. However, there seems to be a lot of people who don't like the game now. There are legit reasons for this, but I miss the time the game was hyped all to hell. A trailer at E3 and Miyamoto walking out on stage, everyone screaming in excitement. I bet it was all because of the poor response in the US had to Wind Waker. I love Wind Waker, and many people do as well, but back in the day the art style was heavily disliked. So a more mature Zelda catered to the tastes of the West. It was a dream come true for most people, and I was just happy for more Zelda content, but something happened. A revolution happened. See, Twilight Princess is scheduled for a GameCube release, and it did release on that console, but it was also released for the Nintendo Wii as well. Yeah, this is the first game to get motion controls, the first game for the brand new Nintendo Wii. It wasn't what I was expecting, but it wasn't bad. I remember looking, the game well enough. It was pretty decent. A console generation later, and the game released again. This time was for the Wii U, an HD re-release to boot. This was awesome. Surely this game must be one of the best if it was released on 3 consoles in a row, right? Well, a lot of people talk about the game either very positively or very negatively anymore. I was going to have this opening kind of somber, but that isn't the case. While recording for this video, like the goddesses heard the call, suddenly everyone was talking about Twilight Princess and in a very positive manner. Yeah, a popular YouTube show, Boundary Break, did a great video on this game very recently, and inspired the fans to come out of the woodworks. Hey, I can enjoy that, I guess. Regardless, it is my turn to crack into this game and see how good it really is. This time, I take down the Gerudo King for good. Let's do it. Let's take on Ganondorf. Round 3. So the game starts up, and it's not with Link sleeping, but him talking to his mentor. First off, it's very weird to have Link not asleep at the start of the game. Second, this guy looks a lot like Link. Somehow this isn't his uncle, even though this would make sense since this game takes a lot of cues from Link to the Past. He even talks you into taking the sword that he crafted into the castle of Hyrule, much like Minish Cap. This game borrows a lot, doesn't it? Anyway, after a lengthy tutorial showing Link's life in the little village as a goat herder, a swordsman with a wooden sword, and a sword deliverer, something naturally happens. Monsters raid the village and kidnap a bunch of the kids, as well as Link's female friend, who he clearly has some emotional attachment to. Seems like she is always giving Link bedroom eyes, but that could just be her character model. Anyway, as Link chases after them, he finds a wall of some kind of darkness. He's literally dragged in and transforms into a wolf. It's kinda like when Link enters the Dark World and becomes a rabbit from Link to the Past, but way more badass. Anyway, he's dragged to jail and an imp named Midna frees him. She doesn't seem to like Zant, so she wants to help Link out. She isn't exactly a fan of the World of the Light either, however, and has no issue commenting on it. She ends up warming up to the light, over time. Her arc isn't exactly super creative, but it works over time and doesn't feel forced either. Kinda like if Tetra and Navi fused together to help fight. Anyway, you meet Zelda and off you go to save the world. You start off by fending off the darkness that swallowed the world and freeing these light spirits. After you free a spirit of light, you typically find a piece of some type of power sealed away that Midna wants to use against Zant. After finding the last piece, however, Zant just straight up shows up. He steals the fused shadows, the power previously mentioned, and nearly kills Midna with the nearby light spirit. Pretty brutal. Zelda ends up sacrificing herself to save Midna, and off you go to find a specific mirror. The mirror happens to be broken, and suddenly Ganondorf is talked about. Yeah, the sages near the mirror talk about how they stabbed him, and like a badass, he just broke out of his restraints and killed one of them. They sent him flying into the Twilight. However, later, Zant came out of the Twilight and broke the mirror. After finding all the pieces, Link and Midna take the battle to Zant and brutally pop him like a balloon. Yeah, even Midna is horrified by this, and she only used a fraction of the power from the fused shadows. Whoops. Oh well, that's one gruesome-ass way to die, huh? Anyway, after you take the fight to Ganondorf himself, after liberating the castle of Hyrule, I suppose, Ganondorf possesses Zelda's body for some baffling reason. Huh. Anyway, after defeating him and bringing Zelda back to life, he turns into Ganon, dies, becomes an energy ball as Midna tries to kill him, and she loses. Link and Zelda fight him on horseback until he decides to take Link one-on-one. After a lengthy sword fight, Link stabs Ganondorf in the gut, another brutal death scene, and roll credits. During your journey, you do find the kids and Link's lady friend, restored her somewhat sudden amnesia, and even get Midna's true form. At the Mirror of Twilight, Midna tells Link that as long as the mirror is there, they can totally meet again. She proceeds to then destroy the mirror and take off back to her home planet. Oops. Link then returns home. It isn't a bad story by any means, but it borrows a lot from Link to the Past. Hell, Link uses a mirror to visit the world of Twilight. I mean, come on. Even the sequel to Link to the Past is a dark version of Zelda, though Midna and Hilda are very different characters. This game has a ton of lore in it, though, and my quick run-through misses quite a bit. There are connections to plenty of other Zelda games, Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time, even sets up Skyward Sword in a few ways. However, none of the story and lore elements feel cluttered. There are times they go on a bit long, however, and would rather directly tell you the situation. Still, the writing is pretty solid, and the character writing works really well. This is almost Midna's story in her interactions with Zelda, Zant, and Ganondorf. Zant's character writing is pretty good when he goes from calm and collected to showing his true colors at the end of everything, and then he goes on a temper tantrum and loses his shit. Zelda and Ganondorf are par for the course, but not terrible either. And the kids and Link's female friend Ilia are pretty okay. They are endearing at first and work to motivate you in the game. Now, unfortunately, you will probably desperately need that motivation as well, since the music and the color palette of this world isn't helping any. Yeah, I'm not going to be nice about it. The colors in this game are often bland as all hell. It feels the environments are just dull because of this. The music isn't much better. Don't get me wrong, I do like some of the tracks that the game plays when you're in the field, Midna's song that presents a deep sadness. However, the rest of the tracks aren't that great. I suppose Malamart's theme when he takes over Castle's Town overly expensive shop is pretty catchy. Everything else is a very somber and used to enhance the darker setting and often matches the color and how dull it all is. That being said, there are plenty of positives. The enemy and character models are all pretty great. The enemies are some of the best designs in the series in my opinion. The characters look pretty decent too, but some of the side characters have really weird faces. Everything looking edgy as all hell, but the humans kind of look cartoonish. Except they look realistic too, like everything else. Yeah, it's kind of an uncanny valley in a very creepy sort of way. Regardless, they get the job done and the characters all look very different from one another, so I guess it works. The settings are also pretty cool too. The Forest Temple has you in a giant tree, something I almost didn't notice at first due to the bland colors. The other dungeons have similar issues. Their settings are good, but you can miss interesting details with repeating color schemes in each dungeon. Overall, this game is muddy and washed out. I guess they're trying to make this edgy Zelda game due to how poor reception of the Wind Waker. Look, some of the characters even have tasteful nudity, like Midna in her true form as she's kind of topless, and even the Great Fairy is topless, only covered by her hair. Jeez, I get it. Wind Waker turned a lot of people off, but honestly, I thought the style of Wind Waker worked well over all these years. This game? Not so much. Speaking of Wind Waker, I'm not gonna lie, it kind of plays better too. Not that Twilight Princess is a slouch in the gameplay department though. I'd say the sword mechanics are pretty good overall. The only real issue is that they give you fancy moves and hardly use for any of them. It's almost better to wait for enemies to try and strike, dodge, and then attack. It's still fun regardless. The best part is easily the weapons and tools that you get this time around. The spinner is a fun gear-like surfboard you can surf along specific walls. The iron ball is just an iron ball, and the Dominion rod allows you to control certain statues. Even returning items are changed for the better. Arrows can combine with bombs to make rockets. Bombs can go underwater, and you eventually get 2 claw shots. The swordplay may be a bit of a downgrade, but the items are awesome. This is great. Tons of puzzle solving with my spinner and iron ball. Anyway, one new thing is how the horse works. You can name your horse, but Epona works. Anyway, you can sword fight an Epona as well as shoot arrows. It isn't as fleshed out as it could be and can be super awkward, but otherwise optional for the most part. Oh well. Back to solving tons of puzzles with these super awesome tools and items. Okay, alright, I'll get to the real talk here. Unfortunately, and very sadly, despite how unique and awesome the items and tools you get are in this game, the dungeons don't really do much with them. The spinner has some awesome moments in the dungeon you find it in, and once more in another dungeon. There's a few optional things that use it, but even then it kind of sucks. Unfortunately, outside of the dungeon you get the damn spinner in, normally you just find a track and it takes you to a certain item. Yay? Everything else? They use it as a switch to move bridges around. The iron ball? With actual combat, it's too slow, and there aren't many puzzles outside of hitting ice with it. Double claw shot? Used mostly in one dungeon. This is the most frustrating thing in this game. You have all these cool items and rarely get to use them. The game teases you about this too. You get the spinner, my favorite item, halfway through the game. The dungeon you get it in is fantastic, and the boss fight is amazing. Then you rarely use the damn thing. The sad part is you only get it 3/4 of the way through? Now that being said, the dungeons aren't too bad. Some are a bit bland, and I think that's the worst thing about them. They do try and do different things with each dungeon. The Forest Temple has monkeys, and the Goron Mines have these magnetic parts on the walls, forcing you to spider walk on the walls. None of the dungeons are bad, their gimmicks are just not as interesting as they could be. They work though, and the dungeons do end up being well designed, just, like I said, slightly bland. Now, the Overworld is a bit of a different story. Huge, expansive, and not much going on. Seriously, this place is even bigger than Ocarina of Time's Overworld. There also isn't much to do in any of these areas before the dungeons. Going through the desert is awesome because you wreck the hide out of the guys who stole all the children away. But outside of that, and an old western shootout with a bow, there really isn't much to do around here. You enter the area, clear them with wolf link, then maybe do something regularly. Most of the cool things are cinematic for sure, but after they're just big areas you travel through, or fast travel past. Guess what you will most likely do? Yep, fast travel. At least most of the boss fights are really great. Ganondorf's boss fight is epic as all hell. Star-Lord, who you fight on the spinner, is an amazing fight as well. Zant is a great fight, the giant spider is awesome, the mini boss fight with the Goron in the mines is amazing. Could almost top a top 5 Zelda fights with this game alone. There are a few low points in the boss fights too, but nothing really bad or too awfully boring, just a few that aren't quite as impressive or as fun. Most are really good though. Plus, like always, you get a heart container for your troubles, upgrading your health bar. However, there are less boss fights this time around. There is a metric ton of things to do in this game besides the main adventure. Obviously, there are more pieces of heart around this time. You need 5 this time to gain an extra heart on your life bar instead of the normal 4. And there are less heart containers as well. Dang, you'll need to do a lot of work to get your health upgraded. That being said, it isn't too hard to gain pieces of heart either. I had about as much health as I normally would have when I beat the game. There are a lot that you fight a few enemies, and then just get the piece of heart. Kinda dull, honestly. There are also 2 in every dungeon. They aren't super hard to find if you have the compass. Still, looking for treasure is very fun regardless. You can also go fishing and hunt bugs. Wait, this is the wrong game, isn't it? No, wait, you can actually fish in this game and catch bugs. In the game's defense, you can get a bug net of sorts in Link to the Past. Plus, fishing was around in Ocarina of Time as well. They just made it more of a free thing here, although there's actually a fishing hole too. Just saying. Bug catching is actually a great way to make money. You can take bugs to Agatha, a freaky girl who likes bugs almost to the point of sexualizing them. She upgrades your wallet and pays a bunch of money for each bug. You can upgrade your bow by playing a minigame with realistic looking Tingle near her house too. There are a ton of minigames and things to do, if I'm honest. I didn't record all of them, but they are mostly fun, if I'm gonna, be frank. The only thing I'm not fond of is easily the Cave of Ordeals. I hate this one. I didn't mind this kind of thing in Wind Waker, but here it kind of sucks. The enemies are all the variety to take pot shots at you, whittling down your health. Check this one out. I enter a room, and because Link is blocking the door, bam, arrow to the face. That's fun, sure. It's possible, and you get to see a topless fairy for your troubles. You also get stamps and easy access to fairies through this. Yeah, stamps are in this game too. You can get Hylian alphabet and poses from some of the popular characters. This used to make posts online, when Nintendo had a forum page on the Wii U. Yeah, I'm playing the Wii U version. There are more things to find here. The worst part is, the online forum Miiverse is shut down, so the stamps are more or less just images you collect. Yay. Overall, though, they can be seen as harmless. Oh, you can also do a few side quests to get magic set of armor. It eats your money when you use it, but you're pretty much invincible in it. That's cool. There is a lot to do. Not all of it is the greatest, and everyone will have those side quests you kind of just hate. But overall, I think Twilight Princess nailed the side quests pretty well. Twilight Princess is, overall, a good game. Some major issues with level design and nothing really redeeming about the music and designs of the game. However, there are good aspects on the level design and the writing, the gameplay, and the side content is pretty fantastic. I think if the game had more opportunities to use some of these amazing items, like minigames or something, I'd probably be more forgiving on it. However, the game is still pretty solid on all platforms I've played, except maybe the Wii U. For some reason, every time I play on the Wii Pad, Link keeps moving slightly left. It's annoying when I try and aim bows and stuff, and it even bother to walk around with, if I'm honest. Not sure why the game does this, but it only seems to happen with this game. Luckily, a Pro Controller works perfectly fine. So Twilight Princess gets a 7 out of 10, or a good rating from me. But is there perhaps more to this game? Kind of, yeah. When Nintendo was advertising a gun-like apparatus for the Wii, they used the world of Twilight Princess and made a shooting gallery with crossbows. Before I cut you loose, let's take a quick look at the game, shall we? So, Link's crossbow training is basically a Wii-exclusive arcade-like game that takes place in the Legend of Zelda universe. This game is also emulating the art style of Twilight Princess. Makes sense because that was the newest game out at the time. This game was basically created to advertise the Wii Zapper, an apparatus that holds the Wiimote and nunchuck like a gun. You can play the game without the Zapper device, but I kinda don't recommend it. My hand cramped up pretty fiercely playing this game. It is also more difficult to steady your aim on the game as well, though without it I still beat the game with relative ease. Not to say the game was super easy, but if you try and aim well, you should be able to see most of the game pretty quickly. There are target practice levels, levels where you turn to defend Link, levels where you move Link around killing enemies, and that's mostly it. There are actually 2 boss fights in this game as well, and a multiplayer mode. Overall, this is a fun little distraction, and if you can, I'd recommend trying it out. However, this game is exclusive for the Wii, and again, it is more comfortable to use the Wii Zapper apparatus, but it's still fairly fun without. So, Twilight Princess is good, and Link's crossbow training is a fun shooting gallery. Not gonna lie, this version of Link was hitting pretty strong. That's probably why this version of Link showed up in Smash Bros. More than any other version of Link. Given neither of these are perfect games, or even the best in the series, they're still fun games. I do recommend trying both out if you get the chance. Twilight Princess has many consoles to choose from, but the best version is probably the Wii U version. As for the crossbow training, again, it is only on the Nintendo Wii, but it's still fun if you get the chance to play it. It's a fun time. And thus ends Season 4 of my review series. I'm going to be taking a bit of a break, but when I come back, I'll be working on more Legend of Zelda. Until then, if you liked the video, please hit like, subscribe, comment, so we can discuss Twilight Princess more, and check out my other videos. Thanks! Bye-bye! And I'm sorry if my voice is kind of raspy. It's still smokier than all hell here, and it's kind of hard to talk long periods, so yeah, there's that. Okay, bye-bye.